Extensive public comments. I'd like to move the public comments to after item number 7, the administrator's report, as I have a meeting to attend at 10 o'clock. So we'll move on to item number 5, reports and presentations. Moving on to public comments. Mr. Busso, if you'd like to start with yours, and then you could go to a more productive use of your time.
This will work. Okay, the first comment is from a anonymous from Kane County, and it's in Spanish. So I'm going to start reading that comment. Es totalmente inaceptable el pensar que esté debatiendo si valen la pena las ganancias que están sacando de costa de tener mayoritariamente injustamente encarcelada por estar en este país buscando un mejor futuro. Es totalmente inaceptable que el condado de McHenry haya aceptado a ICE en la comunidad hace más de una década. Es totalmente inaceptable que los inmigrantes seamos símbolos de dinero para ustedes. Pónganse en nuestros zapatos y piensen cómo sería si tu primo, tu hija, tu hermana o tu mejor amigo fuera detenido por tiempo indeterminado, maltratado y deportado. Basta ya. Es suficiente estar jugando con vidas humanas. Escribo para demandar que sean transparentes en el proceso y publiquen las ganancias que se supone que sacan del contrato de McHenry y al tener un contrato con ICE. Muéstrenos a la comunidad lo que están haciendo con honestidad, muéstrenos los números, publiquen qué programas corren con fondos de violaciones de derechos humanos, sean transparentes con las personas de la comunidad que se están beneficiando de estos programas y déjenle saber a las personas de dónde salen los fondos para sus programas. Una vez más, para cerrar con mi comentario, les pido que publiquen las ganancias netas del centro de detención de ICE. Again, this was an anonymous comment from a Kane County resident. Second comment in Spanish from Mauricio from Mexico City. Entendemos que la función de ICE es cuidar a la seguridad de esta nación. Sin embargo, cuidar significa detener a los ladrones, terroristas, lavadores de dinero y personas peligrosas, más no personas trabajadoras que han contribuido a hacer las comunidades en Estados Unidos más grandes. Estoy agradecido por la lucha de las actividades y las organizaciones para cerrar el centro de detención de ICE. Gracias. Those are the 2 comments in Spanish.
Okay, I'll start with the next comment, and we have about 15 of these comments, so we're not going to get through those before Chairman Bueller and I need to log off, so please acknowledge that we're going to have to stop off about 9:15, or excuse me, about 9:55, and Scott's going to continue on, but I'll read the first comment from Alicia.
And Vice Chair Schofield will adjourn the meeting at that time. Mr. Thorson, did you have a question?
Actually, I was. Did I miss something? Could we hear the public comment so that I may understand what was spoken?
Looks like Mr. Busso may have logged off. You could translate it. See if we can round him up. Peter, do you want to continue with the other ones, or Jeff, or we could come back to that?
Yeah, fine.
Okay.
I don't think we want to have Kevin spend his time translating now, but if we can put that through Google Translate and send it out.
Oh, let me just say one thing. If we're going to do public comment in another language, since I speak English, I need to hear it in English. So please, I don't have a problem doing it in the other language, but we certainly need to hear it also for the rest of us. And I mean, they're also talking to us, including the county. So I would like to know what they have to say. Thank you.
I appreciate that direction, Jeff.
Mr. Gottemoller?
Yeah, I would have one other request. I'd like to see all these things in writing and put it in the agenda. I don't need to be read to, candidly. I can read this stuff and take it in and absorb it, and I'd like to hear the public comment, but I really would like to see the public comment. And, to have us all sit and listen to a half hour of reading is just a tremendous abuse of our time, candidly. If you've got 25 letters given to me, let me read them.
Ms. Wagner?
I understand what you're saying, Joe. I guess I respectfully disagree, just because if we were having a regular meeting, they would all be coming up and giving public comment in front of us. So I think that this is part of the public record and should be read to us. I understand it's time consuming, I really do, but it is part of our regular meeting.
And again, I'm not saying don't do that. Give me the other documents in writing on top of that.
Oh, do both. I understand that. I would like that too.
We can certainly send them out to the board after the fact. I did speak with the state's attorney's office about the prospect of simply sending the comments out in writing versus reading them, and their recommendation was that in this unique time that the law seems to suggest they should be read. The third comment is from Alicia Coulier. It says, McHenry County Board, I'm asking you to vote to cancel the contract with ICE. This vote goes beyond finances and impacts the environment of the community. The presence of ICE.
You have a comment. My hand's up. I expect to be recognized by the chair. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Peter, but this is Paula. I think that it needs to be, people show up to the meetings and they read their comments, and that needs to be read into the record. I would like to see it both ways. I'd like to see the hard piece of the public comment, but I think they need to be in the record like you're doing, Peter. And I think when someone comes up and they speak in Spanish, there needs to be translating their comments side by side so that we have an understanding of what's being said to us. And so I would like to see it both ways. It needs to be put in the record verbally, as well as seeing the hard copies. Thank you.
Okay, and I apologize, Ms. Jensen, I did not see your hand up there.
Okay. Continuing, it is completely unethical to prioritize the use of revenue as an excuse to continue the immoral contract with ICE. There are other options when it comes down to it. Refusing to look at other avenues for lost profits, it becomes apparent that the board members are choosing complacency to a system that is not in the best interest of the people. Instead of being open and willing to do work to find other avenues that do not encourage intolerance and the use of exploitation of vulnerable people. If you are willing to listen and use your power to make necessary changes to improve the lives of the people in your community, then who do you truly serve in your role as a public servant? Please listen to the people and cancel the ICE contract. Thank you, Alyssa Coulier.
Next comment. It is being heard on the wind and said in activist ears in regards to the fight to end McHenry County's ICE contract. Just wait for the new administration. Things will be better. These words come from a place of privilege, from people who have not had to fight against the system to live a normal life without fear. A few days ago, my mother-in-law, a lifelong ESL teacher and a woman who helped pioneer Palatine's ESL program, was helping me with a few pieces of Spanish I was trying to write and understand. While she helped me, we talked about the impact of ICE in our nation and how immigration policies here in the U.S. impact people that live here. A memory of a young teenage student came flooding back to her. The student, a child who was part of D200 school in the Woodstock community, traveled back to Mexico to visit family. She did this willingly because family is everything and people go years, decades, and lifetimes without seeing loved ones, and she couldn't do that any longer. This child went to visit family, and then, because she was living here illegally, she had to cross through the desert to return to her home in Illinois. A child had made this choice. Board members, she never made it out of the desert and back into the arms of the community that loved her here in Woodstock. She died alone in a desert. I can't fathom the fear that went through her as she died. How horrifying and beyond despair all those whose lives she touched, felt, and no doubt still feel to this day. This girl, this child, was our community member, and she died because she wanted to see her family. She is gone because under Obama-Biden immigration policy, people had to choose between saying goodbye to family forever or living in the United States, a choice too many have to make and yet never should. I share the story because it highlights what is wrong in the thinking of stopping this fight against ICE, the ICE contract, because a new administration is coming in. The contract with McHenry County has taken part in for longer than a decade, affects more than the detainees. It not only impacts our community members and causes them to live in fear, but is also part of a system that is racist and dehumanizing to its core. It's part of a system that is causing children to choose between family or death. End the contract with ICE. Amanda Hall, Woodstock community member.
Next one is from David Bradburn, and unfortunately this is going to be the last one I read. My name is David Bradburn. I'm a member of Activists for Racial Equity who now live in Crystal Lake. First, I would congratulate you and welcome you to the newest members of the board. As you know, yours is an important task and you face the challenges that will unfold you during your tenure. I hope that you find this work to be meaningful and rewarding. Second, I'd like to say a bit about ARE. R is a local civic engagement group with nearly 900 members who actively work through study and reflection, voting, petitions, letter writing, and public speaking, and other forms of direct action to center and amplify the BIPOC voices of our community, dismantle systemic oppression, construct collaborative systems to ensure equity and access through intentional education and community action. Finally, as I and others have said today many times before, we would like to see an end to the ICE contract. I am still amazed that basic accounting of revenues and costs cannot be quickly determined and thereby provide the actual profits from this contract. If daily numbers of ICE inmates are provided, then monthly numbers are available with simple arithmetic. If these daily numbers aren't known, then there is an issue with the custodial work of the department. If these numbers are known and not provided, there is obfuscation. We tend to hide which we don't want known or that which is not others' business. Since this is government's works, it's all of our business. Outside of that, beginning to appear at best the dragging of feet in getting the actual numbers, my concern is that the longer the county takes, the more attention will be brought on this issue from an increasingly wider audience. Let's find the numbers and move this forward and vote by February of 2021. Thank you, David Sandberg.
Okay, I'm going to have to leave as well, so Vice Chairman Schofield, if you could take over, please.
Will do, thanks.
And I'll continue with public comment, if that's okay.
Please do.
Good. Good evening. I'm reaching out because I'm concerned about our community and would like to echo the voice of the voiceless. Ending the contract with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement would be a tremendous start to showcase resilience within our community. ICE uses taxpayer dollars to incarcerate and deport individuals who may be our own neighbors that have lived in the United States for years. The human beings arrived in this country seeking hope, safety, and a better life, not only for themselves, but for their families. According to immigrationjustice.org, Johannes Favi, a father detained by ICE for nearly a year while waiting for his green card, shared his traumatic experience while in the custody of ICE. Mr. Favi stated, "While I was detained, my wife gave birth to her second child and our family lost our home. I met our new baby in a picture by mail. I saw a man who was detained with me hang himself to try to commit suicide. I feel traumatized still today from all I saw. Ending the contract will help minimize trauma and fearfulness in families and allow hope to be restored within our county. We must focus on creating a safe environment for residents, and a step to do so is by moving forward with ending detentions, deportations, and restoration of policies. Policies that promote immigration control and deportation create an unsafe community. Meanwhile, policies that promote inclusivity in underrepresented communities and welcoming support programs will bring more good than harm. I hope whoever is reading this email can read it with an open mind and an open heart and understand that ending the ICE contract will be a start to ending dehumanization and human rights abuse. Thank you for your time. Best, Dulce Lopez. Next comment. In a time since Biden becoming president-elect, significant changes to the ICE contract to ICE works have been strongly recommended. The ACLU advised Biden dismantle a program that allows local sheriffs to actively help ICE arrest immigrants and hold them any longer than necessary. The Center for American Progress recommends winding down the agency's detention apparatus and relying more on community-based programs. It has been recommended that incoming President Biden should prioritize a cultural reset and focus deportation officers on much smaller number of high-quality arrests of serious convicted criminals, which will take more time and effort. Biden has already stated that for his first 100 days, there will be no deportations. He has stated that a path to citizenship will be established for undocumented residents in this country. Biden is against the criminalization of immigrants and asylum seekers. There is change coming, and with that change, the revenue from a detention center will no longer be something this county can rely on. The writing is on the wall. Instead of housing ICE detention center in the city of Woodstock would much better serve its community members as a safe city or sanctuary city. We need to remember that being undocumented is not a crime. It is a civil violation. Undocumented immigrants have rights under the Constitution. If a police officer comes across a person who turns out to be undocumented, they cannot arrest that person if that person has not committed a crime. If they arrest somebody who is suspected of a crime and that person is clear, they must let that person go. Holding a person after the point they should be released so ICE can pick them up is unconstitutional, and the police can be sued for unlawful holding. A sanctuary city will uphold the constitutional rights of an immigrant. A non-sanctuary city will hold that person even though the holding is not constitutional. Sanctuary cities make everyone safer. The police are then free to focus on going after serious criminals. Cities, communities, and law enforcement want immigrants to trust the police. They want them to report crimes, give tips, and testify as witnesses. In order for immigrants to trust the police, they need to know that the interaction will not lead to deportation. It is time all of our community members feel safe. It is time the city of Woodstock and McHenry County build a bridge to reestablish trust between immigrants and law enforcement. Vote to say this community supports the constitutional rights of immigrants. Vote to establish our community as a safe community for all. Vote against the criminalization of immigrants. Vote to cancel the ICE detention contract. Eva Baker, Woodstock. I am grateful my comment was read along with many of my neighbors the last time the members of this important body met. Thank you for respecting our rights to protest a cruel and potentially financially unsound arrangement between ICE and McHenry County. Newspaper coverage of last week's protest mentioned the idea that some of this board are not concerned with the ethical side of this, but solely with the financial aspects. While I wish the leaders of our community would consider morality when making decisions that tear apart families and terrorize communities, I will not expect all of you to agree. Instead, I will urge the board to consider that detention and deportation will hopefully decrease precipitously under incoming Biden administration, and whatever revenue the county is now generating from this barbaric practice will likely decline as well. Furthermore, as our region's suburbs and exurbs continue to become more diverse, think of the impact this sort of hostility will have on people considering whether to purchase a home or start a business in McHenry County versus areas with more humane approaches. Thank you for your time and your service. Please do the right thing. John Kokoris. Dear McHenry County Board members, thank you for listening to your constituents as you dedicate yourself to serve and represent the citizens of McHenry County. The ICE contract has become a debated issue from the moment it surprisingly appeared on the agenda. The initial debate of the Finance Committee was based on limited information and driven to the forefront by mostly sentimental or financial opinion. It was Sheriff Prim's facts that stood alone. At that meeting, he shared that individuals currently being held in the McHenry County Jail under the ICE contract were all convicted of a crime or crimes beyond their undocumented status. The statement of fact was important as it is the basis of law and order for all residents of McHenry County. During today's very political environment, we must not take lightly or ignore the foundational beliefs and principles of America. We are a nation of laws. Additionally, the Constitution guides us in order to protect the rights, freedoms, and opportunities for all. It has been said that the contract with ICE doesn't portray or represent what we stand for in McHenry County. We argue that it's the adherence to America's fundamental beliefs and rule of law that help make McHenry County a safe and exceptional place to live. As a resident for over 35 years, we chose to build our home in this area because the people valued law and order, as well as open debate on the issues we face. This rings true today. The majority of public comments on the ICE contract express the impacts on families, and more specifically, its effect on children. Our hearts ache as we hear the sincere comments, but cannot deny these issues often surround families that face the consequences of unlawful behavior. This is why your constituents may be best served when you openly consider, debate, and evaluate all facts and outcomes surrounding this issue. Moving forward, we hope for transparency throughout your discussion on this issue. It'll be challenging during COVID restrictions, but public awareness through ongoing information will be important to you as you address what's before you. We appreciate your thoughts, your thorough examination on this issue, future agenda items, and the impact they have on the residents of McHenry County. Respectfully, Cliff and Karen Craig. Excuse me. Next comment. As a bilingual teacher and former immigrant to this is something that is very important to me. I don't really like to talk about my own experience immigrating to another country because the truth is I didn't have to face nearly as many challenges as people trying to come to the U.S. have to face. What I can say is the experience of being an immigrant is still very scary because in the legal limbo, you have the constant fear of being ripped away from your loved ones just through one simple error. So anyone trying to tell me that all these immigrants are criminals have no clue what they're talking about. They are mostly people trying to be with someone they love. The other thing is that I have worked with kids who have been orphaned by ICE, and the effects are astounding. Imagine being 6 years old and your mom and dad are gone. Focus in school drops. It's hard to have fun with friends, and you don't even know if you're next since your mom and dad were taken. You're 6, and the only place you know is right here, not the country where your parents are from. And a big misconception, not all people detained by ICE are people immigrating to the U.S. People trying to visit the U.S. on tourist visas can be detained if the paperwork is deemed suspicious or they are not typically released unless someone can vouch for them. That would be like my friend coming to visit me in Spain when I first moved there, and they were detained, but I couldn't go get them because if I did, I would be detained as well, so we would both be in jail. Please, this is not a call to open our borders and let anyone come in. I'm very much in favor of immigration regulations, but the problem is that ICE is a very inhumane organization that does not represent the pillar of the United States that I was taught to believe during my public school education. As some of you know, I haven't even touched on some of the even more disgusting things that this organization has alleged to do in other areas of the country. There isn't enough time to write, so just please help me get this facility out of my town. I love Woodstock to death, and I think it has some of the best people, public organizations that you could ever want, just not ICE. That was from Kyle Mitchell. Next comment. My name is Megan Hansen, and I've been a resident of McHenry County, particularly Woodstock, for the past 23 years now. I am writing regarding the contract the county has with ICE. This contract is extremely disappointing. I believe McHenry County should end their contract with ICE in order to cultivate a compassionate community. Immigrant detention centers separate families that are wildly inhumane. People are dying in immigration jails due to exploitation and negligence. Additionally, there is rampant sexual abuse occurring within these centers. It disheartens me that our country would support an organization that blatantly harms members of its community. Submitted by Megan Hansen. Next public comment. To whom it may concern. Like many, I have failed to pay attention to some of the important news in our community. After reading the article in the Northwest Herald, I couldn't but find myself in shock. Then I read the October 9th article about profitability yesterday, and that was sufficient enough to elicit this response. Who it is that believes that we should be holding people who likely would otherwise be citizens of our communities? Who is it that believes that profiting from such a venture holds true with the values of any decent society? And where does it all fit with the new Colossus? Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed, to me. I lift my lamp aside the golden door. To this, your response is about profit rather than a path of citizenship? In my opinion, this is shameful, and that is why I am voicing my opinion today. It is time to assimilate, not incarcerate. It is time to show that we have some semblance of humanity, that we are the America that our forefathers envisioned, and that every person reading this, unless they are among our indigenous population, are immigrants. Help these people find their way back to their communities, and if they are guilty of no more than wanting to be Americans as we are, then please let us help them attain that goal by first canceling our contract with ICE. Submitted by M.R. Farmer, Vietnam veteran, District 2, Crystal Lake. Next comment, McHenry County Board. Good morning and welcome new county board members. Soon the McHenry County Board will have the opportunity to vote to cancel the contract with ICE. I urge the board to vote yes to cancel the contract. This is the time to uplift the immigrant community. Ending the contract will not only preserve the dignity and respect of the local communities and regions, but set an example for other government bodies. People migrate for many reasons, including fear from death threats, violence, abuse, and extreme poverty. Seeking asylum is a recognized international human right. We need to uphold human rights as well as due process. Continuing a contract with ICE perpetuates a system based on coercion and abuse of power. As for finances, the profit this county realizes from the contract is extremely slim percentage of the budget. Creative ways to replace the money through other revenue streams and expenditure reductions are possible. There can be no profit worth the misery inflicted on our neighbors by the ICE deportation system. There are community-based alternatives to incarceration and family separation. Vote for dignity and respect. Vote for human rights and due process. Vote to cancel the contract. Thank you, Sherry Liskey. To the McHenry County Board. This letter is written on behalf of the leadership team of Standing Up Against Racism Woodstock. Our group is 830 strong, and our efforts focus on breaking down the walls of systemic racism, racial oppression, putting an end to mass incarceration and prison for profit. Our current administration is a racist and xenophobic regime. Through his campaign in 2016 and for the past 4 years, our current president has claimed Mexico is sending rapists and murderers to the United States as a scare tactic to build a big, beautiful wall. While illegal border crossings were at historic lows, he painted a picture of our country being invaded by criminal immigrants, even though undocumented immigrants commit crimes at a far lower rate than the general population. From the start, this administration has waged an all-out war on legal immigration. In his efforts to ban or significantly reduce all legal immigration, Trump in early 2017 banned immigration from 13 countries due to claimed national security risks and has banned issuing temporary work visas, banned employment, and most family-based immigrant visas, urged the abolishment of birthright citizenship, gutted our legal asylum system, slashed our refugee program to virtually zero, abolished DACA, and put in place policies separating children from their parents, reduced the number of foreign students in the United States, increased processing times, and denied application for legal status that are eligible for approval under our laws. As of last week, a federal judge has fully reinstated DACA and ordered DHS to accept first-time applications from immigrants. With the incoming administration and their plan to overhaul the immigration system and their intention to establish a pathway to citizenship for undocumented immigrants, it is time to accept the fact that the need for an ICE detention center in our community will continually diminish and no longer bring revenue to our county. Each generation of immigrants has only strengthened our country. Every American is proud of their heritage. 1 in 6 U.S. workers in our country is an immigrant. Policies like those pursued by Trump do not protect our country. They only diminish our country and our economy and our future. It is time for a change in this country, and this county. It is time to stand up against racism and xenophobia. It is time to be the change we so desperately want to see in the world. It is time to vote to end the detention contract with ICE. The administration team are standing up against racism Woodstock, Eva Baker, Adriana Carbajal, Cindy Caesar, Amanda Hall, Dean Myers, Jill Pixley, Tracy Soto Garcia, Thelma Soto Garcia. And we have it right down to our last two. This letter is written on behalf of a coalition of community members, grassroots, and national organizations working in conjunction to end the ICE detention contract in our region. The end of the immigration detention is part of our joint effort against racism, xenophobia, discriminatory policing, and mass incarceration, and our aim coincides against racialized oppression. As descendants of immigrants who stole land from natives, it is our obligation to look at the history of offenses that this country has committed and continues to commit against immigrants in order to stop it. As a society, we can no longer stand by and allow ICE to treat immigrants and asylum seekers with a lack of compassion and denial of human dignity. This country was founded on the promise of opportunity, diversity, and inclusion. Our country claims to value freedom and equity, yet it allows an agency like ICE to violate human rights and forcibly remove young children from the arms of their families, oftentimes to be permanently separated. We can no longer allow ICE to criminalize asylum seekers and immigrants. We will not allow them to continue to uphold systemic oppression based on race, ethnicity, and national origin. We have all been made aware of the atrocities ICE continually commits on the local and national levels and refuse to stand by and do nothing to end their reign of terror against individuals seeking asylum due to religious persecution, fear of unparalleled violence, or sexual exploitation. We demand you take a stand against the unethical and inhumane actions of ICE and cancel the contract. We ask you to no longer take part in the mistreatment of vulnerable and traumatized individuals by canceling the contract. These are the voices of our community. We are here to ask that McHenry County cancel the contract with ICE. Hold your head up high, knowing you took a stand to end the abuse suffered by immigrants and asylum seekers at the hands of ICE. And signed by several organizations, and bear with me as I try to read through some of the Spanish names. Federación de Migrantes Unidos por Veracruz, Solidaridad de DuPage Centro de Trabajadores Casa DuPage, Coalición de Migrantes Mexicanos, Federación Hildegardes en Illinois y Medio Oriente, Immigrant Solidarity DuPage, Standing Up Against Racism Woodstock, Elgin in solidarity with Black Lives Matter, Activists for Racial Equality, Crystal Lake, Elgin Coalition for Immigrant Rights, Tree of Life, UU Congregation Social Justice Team, Occupy Elgin, and Fox Valley Citizens for Peace and Justice. My apologies to the organizations whose names I butchered by lack of Spanish. Last public comment. Dear committee members, I'm writing to encourage the council to cancel the ICE contract in McHenry County. I am a member of the Marengo farming community and the educational community. I want to support projects that benefit the common good, but feel strongly that this project will not do that. I believe the proximate ICE will create a culture of suspicion and fear for people of color in general and immigrants in particular. In McHenry County and in difficult days made more difficult by the strong polarization of political wills, this project promises only more of that, with the primary bearers of the ill will being, as usual, people of color and immigrants. If we were to talk projects for the common good, I recommend, one, a 10 to 20 employee meat processing business that is prepared to cater to both conventional and organic processing needs. Our farmers have to drive so far to get animals processed. My husband had to take pigs to St. Louis this fall because of shortages of space at processors, in part due to the pandemic, but the system was already stretched even before. Two, completing the Hum Trail to connect Huntley, Union, and Marengo, bringing folks together rather than further apart to support business exchange along the routes, etc., as works on the Fox River Trail with many coffee shops, ice cream stands, etc. With gratitude for your work and time in considering this, Tiffany Eberle Kreiner, Root and Sky Farm, Marengo. That is the end of public comment. Thank you.